So today we're going to do the VLSM subnetting, and this is our given network requirements. We have this LAN 1, which is we need a 25 host, LAN 2 55 host, and LAN 3 is 12 host. And right now our given IP address is 192.168.4.0/24. So we're going to use this subnetting table. This one consists of subnet, host, and subnet mask. And here under our network ID, the first thing that we're going to do is to bring the given IP address, which is 192.168.4.0. That one, and then our prefix or our CIDR notation is based on our given network requirement. We need a 55 host. 55 host is the this is the biggest network in our given network requirements. So we need to do the subnetting first here on a LAN to 55 host, this one. So 55 host, based on our subnetting table, it is under on the subnet mask /26, and host is 64, subnet is 4, because 66 is greater than 55, which is our requirement. So 55 or /26 alright, that one /26. Our subnet mask based on the CRD or the prefix or CIDR. Now I got another sheet here, which is consists of the CIDR notation. /26 has this subnet mask, which is 255.255.255.192. So you're going to copy that one, and then we're going to paste it in here. Host in /26. Alright, so this is 64 /26, and the host is 64. That one, and then the first usable host or the first usable IP address is, since this is our given IP address 192.168.4.0, our first usable host will be 192.168.4.1. And then our last IP address or the last usable IP address would be, since 192.168.4 plus 64, which is our host, it would become a 192.168.4.64. But then we're not going to use the .64 IP address because it is allocated for our network ID. So less than 1, that is the broadcast address, which is the 192.168.1.63. and then our last IP address would be 192.168.1 .4.62. So the IP range would be 192.168.4.1 to 192.168.4.62. And our usable IP addresses, the number of usable IP addresses is 62. Why 62? Because the last IP address subtracted to the subtracted to the network ID. So for example, our last IP or the last usable IP address here is 192.168.4.62 minus 192.168.4.0 equals 62, which is the number of usable IP addresses. So meaning to say, in this network we have 62 hosts available, and then our given requirement is 55. So this is good. We're going to center this one, and then the network this is LAN 2, Alright, so the next step here under in network ID would be you're going to add this one, the network ID plus the host. So this would become 192.168.4.64. That's why we're not using the 64 under here in our broadcast address, because we're going to use that one here under in our network ID. And the next given network requirement would be the 25 host, which is the LAN 1. Right, so we need 25 hosts. So 25, we're going to find it here, 25. Alright, so this one under in /27. Alright, and then the subnet mask under /27 is 255.255.255.224. Host, available host, and this prefix is 32. And then the first usable IP address is 192.168.1.4.65. So first usable IP address, the network ID plus 1 is the first usable IP address, or the first usable host. And then alright, so you're going to do the addition right now. So 192.168.4.64 plus 32, this one we're going to add this one. So 64 plus 92 equals 96. So this will become 192.168.1.96 or .4.96. Alright, so our broadcast address would be 192.168.4.95, because broadcast address subtracted to the network ID, we're not going to use that one, just because the 192.168.4.96 is allocated here under our network ID. And then the broadcast address is the network ID less 1 or subtracted to 1. So we got 192.168.4.95. And then the last IP address, or the last usable IP address, is 192.168.4.94. IP range is basically this is the first usable IP address and the last usable IP address. So as you can see here in our previous column, we get the 192.168.4.1, which is the first usable IP address, and then the 192.168.4.62, our last usable IP address. Okay, so in this case we have 192.168.4.65, our first usable IP address, to 192.168.4.94. So this is the last IP address. And how many usable IP address in this case? So we're going to subtract this one, 94 or 192.168.4.94, or 94 less to this network ID, which is 64. So we're going to subtract this one. So to make sure, I am using the calculator. Alright, so we have 94, this one, 94 minus the network ID, which is 64. So we have 30 usable IP address. And 30 is very good under our LAN 1, which is we need only 25 hosts. So we have 5 hosts, 5 vacant IP addresses. Okay, so this is for LAN 1. And the next would be the 12 hosts under in LAN 3. So I'm going to LAN 3, 12 hosts. So based on our requirement, we need 12 hosts. So 12 hosts. Okay, so we're going to use this /28, which is or consisted of 16 host. So /28. Alright, so for 4.96 or 92.168.4.96, the equivalent is or our prefix in or CIDR is /28, and based on here in our table we need to use this one, 255.255.255.240, and we have /28, we have 16 hosts. The first usable IP address would be 192.168.4. Since this is 96, so we're going to use the 97. That one, and now our okay. So before we're going to do the broadcast address, we're going to add this first, the network ID plus the number of hosts. So 96 plus 6 equals 112. So this will become 192.168.4.112 or 112, and then our broadcast address 112, the network ID less 1 or subtracted to 1, this will become 192.168.4.111 or 111, and then the last IP address or the last usable IP address would be 192.168.4.110. .110. The IP range is, of course, we have 192.168.4. The first usable host or IP address, that is 97 to 192.168.4.110, or the last IP address. And then the usable IP address, so we're going to subtract again the last IP address, which is 1110 minus 96, which is this one, the network ID. So 110. Alright, where's my calculator? So 110 minus 96 equals 14. So we have 14 usable IP address. And 14, based on our network requirement, we only need 12 hosts in our LAN tree. So this is good. Now the next step that we're going to do is we're going to subnet the connection between this router 1 to router 2, router 1 to router 3, and then the router 2 to router 3. So first we need only 2 hosts, one IP address from this side and one IP address from this side, another one address from this side, and also this one, and of course the router 1, another IP address here, and another IP address. So we need 6 overall IP addresses, right? So we're going to do that one here. So we only need 2. Actually, technically speaking, we only need 2 IP addresses in this in each network for link A. Alright, so we're going to put it one. Link A. Alright, so we need only 2. So we're not going to use the 2 because, as we all know, we are going to allocate the last the network ID, of course, and the broadcast address. No, so this time we need not use the 2, because if we're going to use this one, we don't have enough IP address to be allocated in link A. So we need 4. This time we need the /30. Alright, /30, and then /30 is equivalent to 252. Host is 4. Of course, 112 plus 4 equals 116. So the next network ID would be 192.168.4.116. And then the first usable host, or the first usable IP address, would be 192.168.4.113. Broadcast address is network ID minus 1 equals 115. So this is 116, minus 1 is 115. 92.168.4.115. The last IP address, again, broadcast address minus 1. So this will become 192.168.1.114. IP range is the first usable IP address and the last usable IP address. So this is 192.168.4.113 to 192.168.4.114. So we only have the two usable IP address, which is good for this one. So as you can see here, if we use the /31, which is 2 hosts, so we don't have enough IP address for this network. So that's why we use the /30 or a 4 host. We get 4 hosts, so that's why we have enough. We have 2 usable IP address left, and we're going to allocate that one for the link A network. Now let's proceed to the link B. Link B, and then the last one is the link C. Right, so of course we only need 2 usable IP address. So again, we're going to use the /30, the 4 host. So I'm going to copy this one. Okay, 4, and then 116 plus 4 equals 120. So 192.168.4.120 will be our next network ID. Alright, so the first usable host is 192.168.4.117. Broadcast address, again, network ID minus 1 equals 119. So that this is 120, and less 1, this will become 119. So 192.168.1.119. Last IP address, so broadcast address minus 1, again we got 192.168.4.118. So we got 2. We got enough IP address here. Right, so the next step is for the link C, again /30. We got 4. 120 plus 4 equals 124. Right, but we don't have any network requirement left here, so we're going to leave that one. So the first usable host is 192.168.1.121. Oh, 121.4.121. Broadcast address, since 120 plus 4 equals 124, this should become 192.168.4.123, because broadcast address minus 1, no, the network ID, broadcast address equals network ID -1. So that is our formula here in our broadcast address, and our last IP address is broadcast address, again -1. And this will become 192.168.4.122. Again, we have 2. Alright, so right now we have we have successfully do the VLSM, or the variable length subnet mask. So based on my network requirement, this is the IP addresses that I am going to use in this network requirement. Alright, so thank you, and I hope you understand the process of doing the VLSM. So the next video, that would be the subnet, or the implementation of the VLSM.